Tic-Tac-Toe mobile game. While the game show Tic-Tac-Toe is well known, the mobile game based on it obviously isn't. Developed by Skyzone Mobile, the object is to place X's and O's on a 3x3 grid by answering questions and get 3 in a straight line. The game was developed for a number of mobile platforms such as iOS, Java, BlackBerry, and Brew. The release was in 2009, and sometime after that the game became unavailable. No one knows when it happened, but a playable version of the game hasn't surfaced since this happened. All that exists of the game are some screenshots and some footage here and there on YouTube. As well as the game, the status of Skyzone Mobile itself seems to be unknown, as Skyzone Mobile never released any games after this and has just quietly vanished. Pudding Toast. Very little is known about this lost Nickelodeon pilot. It was pitched in 2012 by Daniel Chong, who would later go on to create We Bare Bears. In the only tweet about this project, Chong states that he intends to release the pilot, but at the moment he hasn't done so. The tweet includes a piece of concept art from the pilot, which is the only concrete piece of the pilot that's been released. From the looks of it, perhaps it was a show with some horror elements and set pieces, similar to Billy and Mandy. Chong later went on to say that the pilot was in the process of being picked up, and the executive that picked up the pilot got replaced, so the concept was shelved by Nickelodeon. Family Fortunes. In Britain, they never had Family Feud the way a lot of other countries did. Their version of the game was called Family Fortunes, as the name Family Feud sounded too negative. The rules in the British version are essentially the same as the American version, but in terms of preservation, this version was not preserved as well as the American version. In a lot of 20th century game shows, the practice of taping over old episodes to make new ones was very common. Combining this with some other quirks such as Les Dennis's final season not having 14 episodes be aired, and quite a bit of the show is lost. A bulk release of these episodes is very unlikely, so recovering recordings one by one would be the only chance at preserving the entire show.
Beer. How much would you be willing to pay for a beer at the ballpark? $6, $8, $10? Well, what if it was 10 cents? That happened in Cleveland 40 years ago this week when one such promotion went terribly wrong.
1974 Rangers vs. Indians baseball game. Better known as the 10-cent beer night game, from a PR perspective, this is probably a game the MLB wants to keep hidden. Given the high tensions from a brawl earlier in the season with these two teams involving fans throwing food onto the Cleveland Indians players, allowing 10-cent beers for this specific matchup would only ignite tensions once more. In this game, there were 2 separate instances of fans running onto the field and flashing everyone, and eventually, fans got into a more chaotic state as the night went on. Things were thrown on the field, and eventually fans rushed the field and descended into fights with the players. Footage of this game is incredibly rare due to the controversy, and considering how uncommon it was for baseball games to air on TV at the time, it's unlikely anyone is in possession of a recording.
Come on, Gats. I've got to lay down these lyrics right now, cause otherwise I'll just forget them.
Blood and Guts. Very little is known about this short. Supposedly it's one in a series of interstitial shorts aired on Nickelodeon sometime in the 2000s. From the voice acting, it can be assumed that it was made in the UK, but other than that, details of its production are unknown. While the short you're seeing has obviously surfaced, how many more, or even if there are more of these, is unknown, especially for its production value. Nickelodeon hasn't really acknowledged this in any way, and the only reason people think it's from Nickelodeon is word of mouth. It's worth noting that shorts with a similar animation style and voice acting have surfaced from MTV, but it's unknown if they're related. If there even are more shorts, they're lost. Bookworm Heroes. In April of 2013, PopCap released the final title in the Bookworm franchise for iOS. The game was called Bookworm Heroes, and it was a turn-based online multiplayer fighting game where the object was to spell longer words to drain more health from your opponent. The game actually had multiple playable characters, which was a first for the franchise, and players could customize their strategies with different power-ups to go along with the strengths of each character. The game unfortunately never caught on and was taken off the App Store in 2014, and with it went any traces of the game. Obviously there isn't a playable version of the game, and the only people that could play it are people who had the game downloaded on their Apple devices. But even with that, there's a surprising lack of footage of the game online, as I was only able to find a couple of videos. And even if a playable version of the game were to surface, it's unlikely that the online servers would still function. Ah Real Monsters Pilot. As far as Lost pilots go, the Ah Real Monsters pilot has been highly sought after for a long time. The pilot supposedly follows the same plot as the first episode, as a lot of TV pilots typically do, but this is far from being confirmed by any credible source. A few changes were made to the final show from the pilot, such as the Gromble's name being the Womble, and other various changes that haven't been confirmed. Supposedly, according to Rugrat Online, it was a 6-minute long episode titled Monsters Get Real, but it's unknown how credible this is since Rugrat Online is not an official source. Some screenshots have surfaced, but aside from some clips in a Nickelodeon promo, there is no footage of the Lost pilot anywhere else. Sonic Cafe. Sonic Cafe was a mobile game service released by Sega in Japan in 2001 and discontinued in 2007. The service would cost 315 yen per month, or a little over $2 in American money, and users could select from dozens of games playable through the service. Many of these games were Sonic and Puyo Puyo themed, as those tended to be the most popular Sega franchises available through the service. Only a couple of those games are found, however, as preservation of mobile games has been pretty lackluster. An overwhelming majority of the games available are completely lost, and a few of the lucky games have screenshots available, but that is it. Voodoo Heartbeat. Voodoo Heartbeat was a 1973 horror film about a youth serum which turns a scientist into a bloodthirsty creature with fangs. While both looking simultaneously like a vampire and a werewolf, the only references to this creature refer to him as a beast. This was lead actor Mike Zapata's only film role, although he was supposedly involved in a sequel that never ended up being made. There have been no VHS or DVD releases of this film, and as a result, very few materials from this film are available, including some ads and a trailer. The first Wikipedia edit ever. On January 15, 2001, Wikipedia was created. At the time, it was still revolutionary that a user-edited site could function as well as it did. On that day, there are two edits claimed to be the first ones ever made to the site. One by an anonymous user saying, "This is the new Wikipedia," which co-founder Jimmy Wales claims isn't actually the site's first edit. The other one, which Wales claims is the real first Wikipedia edit, was him saying, "Hello World." It's unknown which of these was the first real Wikipedia edit, however, it's general consensus that Wales just misremembered the first edit as one he made on Wikipedia's predecessor, Nupedia. There's not much evidence corroborating Wales' claim that he made the first Wikipedia edit, as the edit history of the homepage sides with the claim that the anonymous user made the first real edit. If Wales' first edit was actually real, it's entirely lost now.